Welcome back to Raised by Giants, where we talk all things spirituality. I'm Ryder Lee. Tonight we have special guest writer, ghostwriter, teacher, and lecturer Elana Freeland speaking about the monetization of your thoughts, full-scale invasive electromagnetic devices, and much more. But before I introduce her, check out Raised by Giants on Rockfin. It is a completely uncensored platform. Go over there, set up a free account, get all of my regular content I post here on YouTube, and sign up for Rockfin's premium content, which is far less than a YouTube premium account, at only $10 a month. And you'll get all of my premium uncensored content when it gets released, and all of the other creators' premium content as well, like Beyond Classified, Charlie Robinson, Jay Dyer, Zero with Sam Tripoli, Tinfoil Hat, Eddie Bravo, and Rex Bear Leak Project, and much more. Check the link in the description to sign up for the video streaming platform, Rockfin. Also, check out C60 Purple Power. It is the most powerful antioxidant on the planet, helps with energy levels, skin problems, infections, eyesight, brain cognition, EMF radiation, and a lot more. It's a free radical sponge that gives your body the ability to heal itself. And if you use promo code GIANTS10 from the link in the description, you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. I highly recommend it. I've been using it for over a year with my own money, and I wouldn't recommend something that doesn't work. Elana Freeland, welcome to the show. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm very excited to speak with you. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Ryder.
Yes, I've read your book, Geoengineered Transhumanism, and it's very fascinating. And I'm very impressed by the not only your scientific approach to what's going on, but the esoteric and occult-like themes in it as well. With your incorporation of Rudolf Steiner, and we're going to get into that, here in a little bit. But what you've written about really seems like our reality is kind of shaping up to head in that very direction. I'm convinced, anyway. Now, the question then becomes for me: who is this transhumanist agenda for? Is this going to be for everyone when everything crumbles apart and who's left over, or just for a select few? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, the way I presented in Geoengineered Transhumanism, which is my third book on geoengineering, it is definitely for all of us, but there are some problems that the global elite, and that's who I claim is behind this, the global elite have regarding our consciousness and our attachment to free will. So they're having to come at it in a clandestine way. It can't be a direct way. It can't be. I think with MK Ultra, I spent 10 years on MK Ultra. I know a lot of survivors of MK Ultra. I think with MK Ultra, they thought they had the answer to how to make us all transhuman, to turn us into cyborg robots in a way. But I don't think it worked. And they needed something more tangible that they could remotely direct us in our transhumanism. So that's where the environment comes in. And I posit that the environment has been weaponized. A lot of us know that. But it's been weaponized not just for power and control and greed, but it's been weaponized for a very different species of human being. They've made the environment so inimical to the natural human being. It's really an environment made for human 2.0, not human 1.0. So I go through in the book, and the subtitle is very important. how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetism, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. And the nanotech is a huge, in fact, I would go so far as to say the nanotech is the very core of the ability to really do a truly transhuman race, because the nanobots that we've been breathing now in the geoengineering program, which has been running for 2.5 decades now, they keep saying in the press that, oh, we may have to use it. It may have to, we may come to that. We're going to put sulfur up there. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. The truth is, this has already been running now for 2.5 decades under Project Cloverleaf, and that's what I lay out in these books I've written. So the nanotech, though, it took me a few years to really realize how huge of a centerpiece that was. And what happens is, whatever they lay up in the stratosphere, from the jets, the drones, and the rockets, that a lot of it ends up being a ring around the equator, way high up, almost to the ionosphere. And that is filled with nanoparticulates of metals, conductive metals. It has a lot of the nanobots, the robots that are nano size, a nano being 1/1000th of a meter, just so people know. We're at the atomic level with this technology, which I think is crucial to remember, because the first time we were at the atomic level was the Manhattan Project. And at the Manhattan Project, as we all know, they were able to keep it secret for years, and it produced a tremendous bomb, is one of the very many things it produced. But now we have a nanotech that is made, it's a manufacturing process by laying one atom next to another atom, next to another atom, next to another atom. And this is an atomic level technology. And every time you go to the atomic level, you are right abutting the quantum levels. And the quantum levels, as we know, are various dimensions that are sort of interpenetrating our world, but without access to our world previously. But now we have CERN, and we have much capability now to open access to quantum dimensions. So this nanotech is a problem in that it is the atomic level, and we've breathed it in. We're breathing it every day. So you can't just go and get a heavy metal detox once and be done for the year. This is now every day. We are breathing it in because they are dropping it. And why are they doing it for the geoengineering? Well, they're doing it because they need chaff. They need what they call doping of the atmosphere to keep it ionized for all of the different transmissions that are going on, the billions and billions of transmissions, not just your cell phone, and not just fast movie downloads. This is about military and intelligence, many, many experiments going on, particularly plasma experiments. So the nanotech plays the pivotal role, I see now, in transhumanism. How are they going to do it? Well, I see two ways, and this is through the last 3 years and what we've been through. We are now seeing under electron microscopes all sorts of things. So the serums and the post-inoculation blood is showing, it looks to me like two separate ways. One is genetic, for sure. The other is cybernetic. The genetic way is mRNA. And so that is one way that we're approaching transhumanism. The other is equally interesting, however, because the other has to do with tiny nano-sized computer parts that are being found, routers and circuit boards. All of these are seen, these right angle, tiny things under the electron microscope, seen in the blood. And so the way I see it is this: you're still using future tense for transhumanism. Not so. Might as well drop the future tense. It's already underway. And this way, they are going to be able to use the nanotech for both of those, that two-pronged attack on human 1.0. Because they've spent years and years destroying our system by destroying or weaponizing the environment. So our immune system now in the modern human is extremely weak, certainly much weaker than in our ancestors. So the immune system has to be disposed of, because that is a divine part of us. It is not just good health that produces the immune system. This is because we are spiritual beings living in physical bodies. And this immune system, to me, is corollary to the conscience, another strange mystical part of ourselves. The conscience is the one that says, no, you don't want to do that. And, if I hear my conscience say that, I've learned through some things I did wrong in my youth, I've learned to very much obey the conscience. Same way, the immune system, what keeps it strong? Does an ice cream sundae all the time in a big bag of potato chips and watching TV until the early hours, does that really keep your immune system strong? Probably not. So these things are going to retain our human body if we don't submit to the big pharma, big medicine industry that's based on sickness. So first they do the environment for the transhumanism. Now comes this seminal moment in 2020 through 2022 when there is an insertion process that goes on. After 2.5 decades of knowing that we have all breathed in this technology that can now be accessed by supercomputers, via 5G and 6G. 5G and 6G are not just a higher speed internet kind of thing. They are primarily the millimeter waves, and the terahertz are excellent at controlling tiny, tiny, tiny scale technology. And so that's how I see that they're doing it. And it is going on. To me, if you can keep your consciousness and your immune system in peak condition, then we can make it through this and retain a human species. But I am very concerned that, yes, we're going to lose a lot of people. But the real concern to me is, will human 1.0 be able to continue now that this onslaught has begun? And it is only the beginning.
Yes, it's really interesting because in your book, you asked the question, how far does the military doctrine of full spectrum dominance extend, right? And all the way from the atmosphere into a living cell, into his DNA, and all the way to your thoughts, right?
Yes,
And I
yes.
think that last part would be very alarming to people, most people, because if your thoughts aren't even your own thoughts, then that really cancels out any kind of free will, right? If they have the technology to control your mind, then they have the full capability to do anything, which, my research into this technology, they do indeed have this kind of technology. Can you speak on that, the controlling and the monetization of our thoughts?
Yes, very important. And if you remember with MK Ultra, which was back in 1953, for those who don't know, when the CIA was running the mind control programs, 149 sub-projects, after we brought the paperclip Nazis in, who had reams and reams of files that they had collected through their experimentation in the concentration camps. So the CIA itself, I don't know that many people know this, but it was actually designed by Reinhard Gehlen, who was an SS officer. So we basically have a CIA which is Nazi, and it has been from the very beginning. It is no different now. It is highly developed. It has expanded through In-Q-Tel into the economy, into all the universities. I mean, this was such a bad idea. I can't tell you. But when MK Ultra started right away, they were working primarily with hypnosis, drugs, and pain induction as means to fracture this personality and build agents that would have no memory of the fact that they were carrying secret documents or that they knew some secret code or whatever. By fracturing the personality, they could then reprogram those parts into sex slaves, drug mules, diplomatic corps in the U.S. Embassies around the world. So, but it went. They also knew that the best way would be if they could do it electromagnetically. And so research began very early on to figure out a way to, for one, bypass the ears and do a bone induction of sound for secret messages that you could be sitting on a subway and nobody else would hear what you're hearing because it's going through bone induction. So they knew that they needed to make it more remote so they wouldn't have to do those three things over and over and over with lots of agents and lots of clandestine operations. They have achieved that. And then what they have done is to turn the entire world into a wireless operation. So everybody thinks how cool the cell phone is, how great it is that we have wireless and on computers and every other way. But there's a big price. The Chinese have a saying, the bigger the front, the bigger the back. And the back of this is huge because this is how our brains are being controlled. And I use the present tense because it's already a done deal. And the way they do it is through, yes, the wireless world. And remember, the wireless world depends upon all the chemtrails, all the particulates on a nanoscale falling constantly in the atmosphere as a doping agent so that they can run many thousands and millions and billions of transmissions. Okay, wireless world. Then the next thing is they're using pulsing. It isn't power so much that they need. In fact, the human brain operates in a way that the extra low frequency ELFs are much more powerful in our brains. In fact, our brain has a mechanism that if anything is higher than something like an extra low or ULF, then it will immediately translate it into something of a lower frequency. There's an automatic ability there, but in order to do the mind control, they need to control the entire frequency that they need in order to get in through the blood-brain barrier into the nervous system, into the brain, in order to run transmissions. They now have achieved it through satellite, and that is called remote neural monitoring, RNM. It's highly developed. And if they have your evoked potential is the words they use. Your signature is unique. Everybody's brain, everybody's incarnation is unique because we are spiritual beings living in bodies, as Madonna sang to us in the 80s about being in a material world. Yes, so the ability to get into the brain is through the evoked potential, and you can be picked out of a crowd of millions. It doesn't matter. You can be tracked in a crowd of millions as long as they have your evoked potential. And as long as they keep this atmosphere ionized. And that's how mind control now is generally done. Now, there are other ways which are more like MK Ultra, for perhaps leaders of nations, leaders in the UN, people who have very designated roles in the world, tend to be programmed in a different way. The one I've just described is for the masses. But believe me, mind control is a done deal. And the most scary thing is, to me, is not that, yes, your free will is pretty much over. But in a way, in modern society, in various ways, that is true, that you don't have much free will in a mass society. But the scary thing is, what if you are mind controlled and you don't even know it, and you think that's you? Or the people who are coming to me now through emails, I get emails from people all around the world about how they have thoughts, or they have feelings or emotions, even behaviors, and they're in doubt as to whether they're theirs. And that's a very reasonable perception, is that it may not be yours. So I say to people, if you have thoughts or impulses or any of that that are just not you, it may be that you're being pulsed with a frequency to see how convincing they can be, because a lot of people are targeted and have been for a couple of decades now. These are the targeted individuals. But we are now entering a phase in which I maintain that we will all be targeted, because the 5G system is up and running, no matter what they tell you that your area doesn't have it yet or whatever. That's all nonsense. It's all running. 6G is with it. 6G is running, and now they're working on 7G. So you see what I'm getting at is that we're being drawn into a robotic, a cybernetic world. And we will be all run, as Yuval Harari keeps telling us, which I'm very grateful to him for, by the way. He's like my poster boy of Satanism. He tells us that we're going to be surveilled. That's the word he uses, but it really means controlled, from under the skin. And the under the skin is exactly the nanobots that reside in us, in the millions. And all of those can be programmed remotely. That's the transhumanism I am most interested in. Yes, there is the genetic other prong, and that may be laying the matrix of the transhuman, and a genetic matrix, but it will still require cybernetic control, I maintain.
Yes, and I want to jump a little bit back to the implantation of thoughts and ideas and technology that would be able to collect and pick out those thoughts directly out of your head, right? Because it was a program ran by naval intelligence that was called the Global Information Grid. And this was a U.S. Navy Space and Naval War Systems Command. And they would use wireless handheld receivers and picked voices and data from like just directly out of people's brains like cherries. It was built by Lockheed Martin and Boeing. And it's also interesting too how you mentioned in your book like this dual use technology, and how when something is put out to the public, it serves multiple uses, mostly for military use, and then it doubles as something on the public, right? And there's also V2K, which is a very real technology. That's a patented technology. There's also a technology to affect your symbiotic nervous system of humans on the planet as well. So what would be the dual use purpose for this V2K voice of God type of technology to be able to implant thoughts, ideas, beliefs, false memories into people's heads?
Well, once again, the V2K is the bone transmission technology, very highly sophisticated now, because like I said, I mean, I find it amazing. It can be run by satellite. And right there, you've got another system coming in that we are not being told about at all, which is called plasma. And if you're going to transmit from space to do a V2K on someone, a voice to skull, then you probably are going to want, yes, you need their evoked potential. Once you have that, it's like a telephone number, right? That it just calls one person and gets access to that person's brain via bone induction. That's the important part. It can be a voice that is yours. It can be the voice made into the voice of your father. It can be made into the voice of God, as you said. However it is done, the plasma, to me, I want people to know it exists, because plasma is it's called the fourth state of matter. I personally think it's the first state of matter. And I explain that in the books, but it is a substance. I don't know if you remember when they used to have seances back in the 19th century. William Crookes used to go to these, and he's known as the father of chemistry. Anyway, they would go to these, and there would be this channeler or a clairvoyant, and it would get to a point, and they would take these photographs of this ectoplasm coming out of her. It would maybe come out of her mouth and her nose, all her orifices in her head. But it would be right there in the room, at least in the photographs you see from that period. It looks like it's there. And maybe they were doctoring the photographs, but I can imagine being able to produce plasma, and then she would recall it and take it back in. So, very strange. I think that was plasma. And I think we need to study plasma, because it's not only being used in plasma ion engines, the new exotic craft engines that they're using plasma as a fuel. And when you look up to the sky, up in the sky, you see these clouds, and you think that they're the same old clouds we've always had, which they're not. They're made of plasma. They're produced by chemistry and electromagnetics. So plasma seems to be the name of the game. In particular, when it comes to your body, and say they want to access you all the time, not just with one V2K arrangement where you imagine a beam coming in and bone conduction going on, and you hear something, and then they're not going to run that 24/7. But if they can glom some plasma onto you, and then they have that plasma corollary with the satellite, they can keep you 24/7 on a leash and run you that way. And certainly, I think some world leaders are like that. I think they're being run 24/7 by satellite, but I can't prove it in a court of law, because this is all classified stuff, and they've used it in sci-fi for how many decades? I mean, we've seen Star Trek, and here and there we see a lot of technologies where we're being pre-programmed to grasp it in a sort of entertainment way, but not in a way that's really technically explaining to us what we might be going through in our daily lives as they're working out. I mean, I have never been a proponent that they want to kill all of us. That's just that just is ridiculous.
Makes zero sense.
We're too valuable as guinea pigs.
Yep.
And yeah, we're expendable for sure. I would say all of us are expendable, but to be used for all of the different technologies because I would say that they are, I don't know how you do this in a time sense, the idea that science is really 50 years in advance. But that's easy for me to say. Yeah, at least 50 years in advance of what almost all of us know. And even what I've put together is just peanuts next to what already exists. I don't need to import aliens from Alpha Centauri in order to see what is happening here. Now, as to, the dimensionality and the crossovers between the quantum dimensions and our dimension, now that so many portals or nodes, whatever you want to call them, are open, thanks to CERN, and it used to be only occultists could open those kinds of portals, but now we have CERN, we have all these particle accelerator places around the world, not just CERN. And they are certainly capable of doing some of that. On the other hand, remember the nanotech. The nanotech is very, very important to all of this. And we just don't know enough about it. And I think that includes the people who are manufacturing nanotechnology. I don't think they have a clue, or at least the worker bees at the bottom don't have a clue of what they're really doing. Whereas
that's the compartmentalization of the entire project comes in, right? You have some people working on something, and then another group working on something different. They don't communicate with each other, and then they just do what they're told, right? That's how I think a lot of this stuff works. So, really quick, would this technology be able to distort people's views and beliefs so much that it could make them experience something that didn't really even happen? Like, for instance, we're going to get into a little bit of the alien and UFO narrative here in a little bit later. But for instance, could this technology manipulate your mind so much to be able to make you believe that you were abducted by an alien, make you believe that you seen a UFO, make you believe that you were a part of a secret space program fighting aliens in space for 20 years and then being age regressed back to the very point that you were taken?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, people come to me all the time because they think that I'm studying space and geoengineering, and so these things are interesting to me. Well, they're not really interesting. I mean, they're interesting, but I would need to know a lot more in order to say it's real. Because if your brain is being manipulated, and we've already talked about a couple of technologies that are capable of manipulating the brain at a distance. It doesn't matter the distance. We're talking satellite transmission. We're talking thousands of miles. It doesn't matter. Distance doesn't exist in this. If you keep the atmosphere ionized, you can have transmissions over many thousands of miles that are instantaneous. I mean, we do it all the time, right? You send an email to someone in New Zealand and boom, they're sending something back to you the next minute. So what's so amazing about the fact that the computer brain is being accessed, and full-blown 3D, even 4D realities are just better than wraparound movies. I mean, they're so real. You don't even need the drug anymore. Like, it used to. Remember when the CIA in the early MK Ultra days was experimenting on everyone with LSD? And I've had LSD 3 times when I was younger, and I had amazing realities that were interpenetrating this reality, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But for me, I was not interested in doing any more, particularly when LSD 25 was impossible to get because the CIA was controlling all of it. That was the only LSD you could really trust. I see that they can manipulate people into having experiences that are absolutely real. And I want to make a point there that if you have had an experience that is absolutely real and taught you something, I don't want to rob you of that. You've had that experience. But if you're going to try to convince me that that experience existed in this world for everybody around you at the same time, I can't go there, because I know how the brain can be manipulated. Mine as well. You know, I mean, this is something that I don't know. I don't quite understand why people get so attached to that. The alien idea, the super soldier idea, all of the different programs that the CIA and who knows who, NSA, whoever, are running in order to experiment with what realities you can create, synthetic realities that are just this, you know, it's like we're doing synthetic biology now. It's working like biology, but it's been gain of function. It's been changed from the natural into something synthetic. And yet there it is. I mean, it works very well. But let's try to maintain what is of nature, what is in this time space where we are, without getting so attached to our own personal experiences that we have had.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with that anymore. And my personal belief is that the secret space program and the super soldier asset testimony is used as a dual use as well, right? It's not only used as an experiment on the public to see what we can get people to believe, but it also serves as a cover up to cover up real operations that might be going on the planet, or what possibly might be going on with the militarization of space. Right? They don't want people figuring out really what they're doing up there. So they've implanted and done these experiments on these people to shift responsibility, to make them about this extravagant space 20 and back fighting aliens, fairy tale nonsense in space. And if you get everyone talking about that and believing in that, then it covers up the real thing that might actually be happening here, like real programs, real operations, and real programs and real operations that might be happening in space as well.
Right. And as long as we're on that topic, I know that when it's like one of the experiments that there is a real secret space program. I just want everybody to know that, and that has existed, I would say, since we brought Wernher von Braun over in 1937. He didn't come after the war.
Yeah, he came soon. He came quick.
He was here in 37.
Yep.
And he was the Nazis were very involved in our space program and our rocket program, as you know, Jack Parsons and all the rest reveal. So, but they are doing experiments in space, which are chemical, which are electromagnetic. It's as though they're taking our technology into space in a very different kind of environment, extremely different. It is not like it is here. And they are running those experiments to see what they can create in space. And they are creating various plasma entities up there. I know that. But as far as I can see from the secret space program, MK Ultras I've met, and I've met just a few, like maybe 3. It seems that what they're working on with them is not so physical as chemistry and electromagnetics. They're working on them psychically, what they can produce in psychic experiences that they can be made to have. Now, as to whether that entails entities that are conscious and they are communicating with them and all of that, I really don't know. But I think I'm kind of like you, Ryder. My main job, and I am on a mission for sure, is this planet, is this humanity. And I consider a lot of things being sent to us in the internet, etc., to be distractions. from my mission. So I'm much more interested in figuring out, like, that's why I'm a big student of Rudolf Steiner, figuring out what humanity really is and its greatness, its extraordinariness, that you have this spiritual being that is concentrating on developing a free will and love and all those qualities, certain qualities, out of their own struggles here in a physical plane existence. I find that to be plenty on my plate to understand, so that I could support it, because it seems to me that humanity is always under assault by some faction. We've had secret societies for thousands of years, and some of those secret societies have been supportive of humanity and inimical to humanity. There are all kinds of entities here. Some are benign, some appear to be evil, as we call it. So, there's a lot going on here, and just to figure this out is really my main task. So I don't pay that much attention to the rest, but I do acknowledge that there are experiments going on in space, because the space environment is very different from this environment, and they want to understand that. Now, Rudolf Steiner indicates, and I don't know what kind of credence you're going to give this, but he indicates that there is no way that a human being is going to be gallivanting around in space as a human being, as a material body human being. So I have concentrated on, first of all, I know we didn't go to the moon, certainly not in rockets. Getting past the Van Allen belts is a real challenge, and it's still a challenge. They've blown holes in it. They've tried to, they even created a new belt from blowing an atomic or a hydrogen bomb up there back in the 50s. So I know it's a problem. For the idea that the Nikolai Kardashev idea that, you have full spectrum dominance over your planet, then you have full spectrum dominance over your star, like our sun, then you have full spectrum dominance over the solar system, and eventually the galaxy. Okay, great idea for a megalomania.
Space is a superposition. From space, you can control the planet, you can control the Earth, you can manipulate the tides, you can control the weather. Lyndon B. Johnson was saying that back in 1958. And then it just so happens that there was this operation called Operation Looking Glass that was ran by the Air Force to put armed nuclear command post in space with the ability to launch nukes from Earth. So that was like 3 years later, after LBJ made that statement to the Democratic caucus, which is very interesting here.
But that's also very material, right? It's all material. It's materialistic. The existence of the human being on the planet Earth, and even the planet Earth itself, where you put a seed into the earth, and with water and sunlight and air and soil, you have this life springing out of a so-called dead planet. Well, this planet is absolutely a living being. I mean, all these things are just a little beyond the materialistic science that we've all been conditioned by and programmed by to believe is all there is. But there's so much more. And that's what I feel for the endless distractions that have weakened the will of most people to really set to why they came to the earth to incarnate this time anyway. Everybody comes with a purpose, everybody. But what about if you allow yourself to get too distracted because there's so much going on here.
Yep.
That's what I'm sure of. I mean, I'm on my destiny trail, but I would like to see other people on their destiny trail as well, and not just be, popcorn eating observers, or, couch potatoes, watching it all go by and feeling helpless to do anything. I just, that is not how human 1.0 is supposed to evolve.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a multi-layered plan in order to control us, control our thoughts, our ideas, but also remove common sense and critical thinking, depattern us, just like they did in the MK Ultra programs.
Yeah.
And which is really interesting too, reading through those 149 declassified sub projects of MK Ultra. Everything that they were doing back then is now just open source on the public. It's just happening out in the open now. And a lot of the pharmaceuticals, I've spoken about this several times, a lot of the pharmaceuticals that a lot of people are taking now today came directly out of those MK Ultra programs. Antidepressants came out of the MK Ultra programs. Antipsychotic medications came out of the MK Ultra programs. Amphetamine, Adderall, Ritalin, right? And guess what they give to your children for ADHD? They give them Adderall or Ritalin, and then boom, it's an open air market. Starting in the early '90s and even before that. So I did a little research and I looked up a statistic because I thought I saw a article around 2 or 3 years ago that said over around 90% of the US population are on some sort of pharmaceutical, whether it be over the counter or prescription.
Unbelievable.
I did think to myself those numbers were a little high, but still believable. But I couldn't find that article again. But
I'm sure it's believable. I'm sure it's true.
But the most recent one that I found was from 2014 to 2016. And that article said that nearly half of the United States population was on some sort of pharmaceutical medication, which is still a very high amount. And I'm sure it's just increased over that period of time. And 66% of adults in the United States is on some sort of pharmaceutical medication. And again, I'm sure that's increased over, 7 years later, especially during 2020 and all that. But then, Elena, I looked up how many people that take drugs have mental health issues, right? All I could find were illicit drug users statistics, not pharmaceutical drug uses. So anybody that's listening, don't get them confused, but it still gives you an idea of what's going on, right? And 53% of drug abusers also have at least one serious mental illness. So when you correlate that to how many people are on prescription drugs, the numbers almost match entirely. Nearly half the population on pharmaceutical drugs and half the people that are on illicit drugs at least have one serious mental illness. Right. And this explains a lot. And I think you kind of know where I'm going with this. Did the person have the illness before the medication or after the medication?
And add the frequencies that are coming in to give the person the mood of depression, to give the person psychotic episodes, no matter what they're doing, whether they're doing drugs or not doing drugs. I mean, it's a real setup. It's a real setup. And our only defense lies in becoming conscious of how the setup works so that we can analyze at the moment of inception of a depression, at the moment of inception of some wild, bizarre sound that we keep hearing and nobody else hears it, or we see, some sort of entity in the room with us. And I mean, we have to know that it's an electromagnetic assault as well as the usual big pharma, because big pharma's in all of it. And remember, the chemtrails, what are those? Those are chemistry. Those are big pharma. Big pharma has been assaulting us 6 ways to Sunday for at least since World War I, which was a chemical war, as you remember. That would have been IG Farben before IG Farben split up into many different pharmaceutical corporations. It was hugely powerful. And by the end of World War II, after having provided everything for the Nazis, they were richer than ever. And then there's the in England, the counterpart to the Stanford Research Institute in Palo Alto. I mean, it is all set up to use us. Now, let's talk a moment just about what could be a divine reason for that. Is it all just this realm is all run as a satanic enterprise of power and greed, and we're just sort of pawns in the game of the great global chessboard? No, what if a divine reason would be a test of your humanity, of how you're going to really take it seriously and not just passively and hope for the best, that the angel of death will pass over you and leave you intact? What if all this, particularly the last 3 years, what if this has occurred, yes, as a sort of justice? I can't help but feel, because can you imagine at my age how long I've been screaming and ranting and raving and writing to people to wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Yes, I have been. And yet this period has helped a lot of people wake up. Have you seen that, Ryder? A lot of people are waking up in some manner as an initial wake up.
Yes, I agree. But the issue and the problem that comes along with that is they have to sift through so much nonsense and I'm afraid that people are going to, newly awakened people are going to be tricked into believing a bunch of nonsense instead of actual factual information. And that's the crux of this whole thing. For every real story, we get 10 bullshit nonsense stories. Right. And it makes it very confusing. I mean, they do this all the time. They only give a certain amount of the population one information, and then they give another section of the population different information. So nobody is on the same page ever. And it just creates this confusion and conflict between them. It's a division and separation game. And they've been doing that for a really long time. And if you don't think that that's happening in the conspiracy community, then you're wrong, which is very unfortunate, because I feel like a lot of people come to this kind of community to get real factual information about what's going on, but it's been polluted with a bunch of nonsense.
It has. And that's my main argument for the path I've chosen, where Rudolf Steiner has been my trail guide for almost 50 years now, because I just don't have the arrogance that could actually say I could have made it myself. I really don't. I mean, I'm a pretty talented person and I'm pretty smart, but I could not have made it without this very wise man's maps. They're like maps. Reading his books, his lectures. He started the Waldorf movement for children, to give them a childhood where they wouldn't have computers in the kindergarten. He started the biodynamic farming in order to make sure that the soil is being replenished, so that the food we're eating actually has nutrition. He did many things and he always said that, one should never answer a question that hasn't been asked. I love that as a teacher. That's really, really true. And he was asked to do all these things by people who wanted new impulses for biodynamic farming, for education, for music, for medicine, for all sorts of things, because he was a very old soul. And he had been here many times, many more than I had been here, and I wanted to follow his trail guide, so that I wouldn't get lost again, because I was pretty lost with a very difficult childhood. When you hit planet Earth, you never know what you're signing up for, or maybe you do know, but the personality you are now doesn't remember. The family of origin you've chosen, or the nation you're born into, or like the time that we have now. You never quite know all the details of what you signed on to. And we need to help each other. And certainly listening to people who have some wisdom is a really good idea. A lot of young people, I feel now, are cutting themselves off. And I don't know why they're doing that. It must be the programming coming in through the TV and the iPhone. I have neither of those items, by the way. I refuse to have them because I'm just not strong enough, I don't feel, to be able to own such military weapon systems. I really hope that you're right, that when people wake up, yes, being awake is good, but you have then to stay awake. And to stay awake is a real trick, because there's a lot of things that are trying to distract you and put you back to sleep.
Exactly. And keep evolving your thoughts and your ideas, and don't be stuck on one thing and think that that's the truth. Like, I don't believe that there's one blanketed thing that explains all of it. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are looking for. They're looking for one
Yeah.
singular truth, and there is no one singular truth. And
Well,
if
it's like a
you're looking
pill.
for,
They're looking for a pill.
yeah, fix it all.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for, really, because it is. You're right. It's complex. There are complexities, even with a trail guide as good as Rudolf Steiner. I am still confronted by the reality of my life. He even said that all the old paths of initiation won't work now. The only path of initiation that really will give you an initiation into the truth of your existence is daily life. That's what he said. And I have found that to be absolutely true. That's why I find life just endlessly fascinating. And yet be careful of what you give your time and energy to, because there are realities going on around you that you need to verse yourself in, so that you can therefore defend yourself and take your way and not lose it.
Absolutely, I agree so much. And the unfortunate part about this is that we've been programmed and mind controlled, I believe, on a personal level, to hate our reality, to think that this place sucks and that we want to be someplace else, when they don't go head first into it and realize how beautiful it is here and how much we can experience this duality and the polarity that we have here. Because I don't believe other realities and other planets and wherever else that you would be in another dimension has this kind of capability that we have here. We've just been programmed to really hate it, and that's very unfortunate, and it's something that I've seen a lot of people struggle with, and that's a cause of depression and anxiety and mental health problems and all that. But again, what is the result from? Where did that start from? Did it start with a mental illness and then later on it gets worse, or was it always there? You know what I mean? So it's a very tricky situation here. But I want to get back to the atmosphere and how our atmosphere has been changed, and if it has. I know that we spoke about it a little bit earlier. Do we have proof for this change? Is there documentation? Is there proof that they are actually attempting to terraform or change our atmosphere?
Well, Clifford Carnicom, the independent scientist that began researching, he was really the beginning, other than the fact that the geoengineering program was buried in a classified need to know basis, compartmentalization that we mentioned before, of all the different alphabet soup agencies, the NSA, the CIA, the EPA, the NASA, NOAA, all those that are involved in the geoengineering program, and recognized it and had access to the truth that it was actually a military intelligence operation. They knew, of course, what it was, but Clifford Carnicom was the first independent scientist, no organization, no money, no foundations, who really collected the condensation from after the jets would pass in northern New Mexico, and all of this stuff would be falling down, and you could find it in the snow, in the dew, in the rain. And he began to analyze it because he could tell from just looking on the ground at the jets that those were not contrails. Those were not condensation trails. Those were not water vapor and ice crystals. No, those were chemical signatures coming out of those jets. So why were they laying chemistry in our atmosphere? That was his original question. That was back in the 90s. And so he was collecting that. He collected the dust that was coming in on his HEPA filter. He analyzed it all. He quantified all of it, measured it painstakingly, has hundreds of notebooks filled to the brim with extraordinary research. And of course, all this time, he came to the notice of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, once he sent in a specimen, because early on he found that inside, he was measuring the atmosphere for sure for barometrics and various things that instruments you use in order to see why the atmosphere feels different. I mean, you're an observer and you're scientifically trained. You notice it feels different, and that is it behaving differently? Is there a real difference? So you begin taking measurements of things. He was doing that, and when he sent in his specimen of a filament that he found in the condensation and in the dust, the smart dust that he was collecting, the EPA ignored him. I mean, absolutely ignored him. But what happened is, on his computer, he caught over 160 agencies all checking on what he was coming up with on a daily level for months after he started. So he was ignored, but at the same time, they were fascinated to see what he could find on his own on a shoestring budget with no support, nobody knowing what he was doing. And this he was doing in the 90s. So he became my friend in the early 2000s. And that's how I got into all this. Is he and I had a biology background. We were putting our heads together to see what he was coming up with. I'm looking through his microscope. We had these conversations, and I realized, my God, this is, they're using the atmosphere as if it were a beaker, as if it were a beaker in a lab, and the lab is Earth. And that's where I started, with the help of Clifford, who was doing all the scientific measurement. I was, meanwhile, really looking at how this fits with this and this fits with that, and trying to create a story that could be told about what was going on. So yes, you're asking, is there proof that the atmosphere has changed? Absolute proof from many angles now. Many scientists have discovered that this is not the same atmosphere we had pre-atomic bomb, even just post-atomic bomb, because the atomic bomb changed the atmosphere as well. And now this has changed. This dumping of these chemicals and the electromagnetism from the Earth and from satellite that is affecting all of this to make a sort of synergistic changes in these compounds that we're breathing, because all this is going in. And that's what took me a long time, Ryder, was figuring out, oh, this is not just from a military secret space program aspect where we're getting all this detritus dumped on us and they don't care about us. No, it was purposely, it was big pharma purposely dumping certain things so that we would breathe them in, drink them in our water, eat them in the GMO foods, and even the organic foods, to take it in as a host. And then they would work on us, continue to work on us internally, as they did what Yuval Harari says, that they're going to surveil and control us from under the skin. That took me years to figure that out.
Have you ever heard of Operation LAC? It's Operation Large Area Coverage. That was a Army Chemical Corps operation which dispersed microscopic zinc cadmium sulfate particles over much of the United States and Canada. Which the reason that they say for that was to test patterns and geographic range of chemical and biological weapons. But the EPA reported that cadmium sulfate was classified as a probable human carcinogen.
Cadmium,
Cadmium,
yes.
yes, I'm saying that wrong. Sorry,
It
cadmium.
is. And that's unfortunately, that's only one of the experiments they did. They've been doing experiments on us, well, I mean, since before I was born. Absolutely. But the difference for this is, people try to tell me that this is just the same as they've always done. No, this is global. This weather, yes, the weather is totally controlled. Totally. I don't mean that it's just in spots or it's just the United States. No, because it's one envelope in the atmosphere that we all breathe from. The weather inside this envelope is totally controlled by this technology. So, a lot of nations are struggling to find ways to defend themselves because they see that it can be used the way it was recently used in Turkey to control a nation politically. You just hit them with a 7.8 earthquake and all their people die, and they will spend decades recovering. This is a weapon system we're talking about, and it's just that this weapon system also includes turning us into transhumans.
And then you also have the Rainmaking Control Act of 1967 and the revised version in 2003 to include cloud seeding. In 1985, there's a patent for altering the Earth's atmosphere, ionosphere, or magnetosphere, and was approved in, I believe, 87. Yeah, so what you're saying is very correct, and the untold effects that have been thrusted upon the public is astronomical, right? Not only
and I would say, thanks for bringing that up. The ionosphere has been controlled thanks to HAARP since 2013. My guess is they actually controlled it in 2012. Remember all those prophecies about 2012? Well, that is the year that they finally achieved control of the ionosphere. And if you control the ionosphere, holy cow, you're talking a major weapon system. They can through over the horizon technology of HAARP and other ionospheric heaters in the system, the space fence system that I talk about, they can bounce signals off of the ionosphere and ions out of the ionosphere to create devastation anywhere on Earth because they're using scalar technology now. So, this is all huge, and I go places and give talks, and I'm on radio interviews all the time, and I'm writing these books that, very few people have the brain power anymore to read and can't think their way through and can't turn the page and are asleep and then can't remember what they just read. I'm actually writing for the future when someone starts to look at seriously what happened back now. This is what happened. And this last 3 years, this final, in a way, to me, it's like a coda in a symphony. It's the final piece to a long assault on humanity. This is how humans, for some reason, are to the dark side, whatever that entails, are an enemy, and that would not have occurred to me in my childhood, that you could have such very severe enemies just for being human. And I think a lot of people are still there. They're like, well, why would that happen? I mean, they're human. Well, are they? Is a head and a torso and 2 arms and 2 legs, does that make a human? At least now after this 3 years we've been through, my hope would be that a lot of people are asking not just who am I, what am I, but what is a human being really? And that should entail possibly an entire lifestyle change for many people. Because if you're living for your personal life and your desires and you're looking pretty, or you're, gathering a lot of wealth and prestige, is that what you should be doing this time? I mean, it's kind of like, I don't think so. I mean, I wanted to be, when I was young, I thought I was going to be a great novelist. I thought I was going to write a great novel. And I read all the classics. I mean, I was on it since I was a kid. And look, I am a writer, but look what I'm writing. Could you have told me 50 years ago that I'd be writing books on geoengineering? Not really. You see, life calls for us to come forward and do something that we did not foresee. And are we ready? Do you have everything you need in order to do that kind of work? I happen to have that because since I was very young, I have always known I had a particular destiny. And I lost my way like anybody does when you get here and you flounder around in your youth and you don't quite know who's who and what's what. But eventually you find your way to balance. And then you can use all these skills and this experience that you've gained by grappling with, various parts of evil, various parts of distraction and being lost. I mean, it's an exciting thing to be here, but it's not a passive thing in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Really quick before I let you go, what does Raytheon have to do with these technologies? What is their role within controlling the ionosphere, poisoning our air, poisoning our food, poisoning our water, if there is a role that they have?
Oh, they have a role. Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you a big secret. The big secret is this. The top 10 so-called defense contractors, like Raytheon, like Lockheed Martin, like the old TR-3, like a really bad one is SAIC. All these are just synonyms for the CIA. They are all just synonyms for the CIA. I have proven that over and over again, 6 ways to Sunday. And Raytheon, first the CIA ran the patents of Bernard Eastland for HARP. Then the CIA turned it over to Raytheon. Then, and that was E-Systems as well. That was Raytheon eventually bought E-Systems. Then it went to the US Air Force. Then it went to the US Navy. And then now it's with the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, because all our universities, as you know, are not really places of learning anymore. They're dual use military lab preps. That's all they are. So that's what happened in 1947, the year I was born, was the founding of the National Security Act. Bad idea. And the founding of the CIA by the Nazis. Bad idea. We didn't take care of business then. And now look at us. Look what's going on.
Yes, very, very interesting. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time this evening. And it really does go back to, I think, to Yuri Bezmenov's 4 steps to subvert an entire country, right? And I believe drugging us is a major factor. And I believe if enough people aren't taking the drugs, we'll put the drugs in the food, we'll put the drugs in the water, we'll put the drugs in the air, so it's unavoidable,
Yeah.
right? They figured this out through the MK Ultra programs. If you depattern them with a traumatic event to remove normal thinking patterns and common sense and critical thinking, and drug them, they're susceptible to any information and they will believe anything. Right?
Very
And
good.
you
Very good.
psychically drive them to believe it. This is exactly what they did in those programs.
Yeah.
And psychically driving was done with an audio looped message, which is exactly what we get now, but it comes through your screen in your living room and it's in your pocket.
So true. So true. I mean, and yet at the same time, there's still time that people have to make new choices, and they need to do that. They need to do it right away before the lockdown comes. I mean, there is a trigger system in there. You do not want that before you are fully awake and where you've got a plan of how to stay awake and how to stay human. That's my great prayer. That's my daily prayer, is that we will be able to hold this humanity and remain human.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you online? Where can they purchase your books? And I will get them in the description because I think your books are extraordinary. I'm probably going to go back and read the rest of the trilogy. I only read the newest one, and it was super long, but I'm really glad that I got through it because it was very enlightening information. Where can they find you?
Yeah. Okay. I recommend that you can get them on Amazon, evil Amazon, or there is a little bookstore in Seattle called the Rudolf Steiner Bookstore. You can find it on the net, that carries everything I've written. And that includes my Sub Rosa America series, which you don't even know about, Ryder. And that is my fictional 4-book series based on the history of America since Kennedy's assassination. And that is a not to be missed. It has a cult following of probably a few hundred people, and some people have read it 3 and 4 times. So please read that. Then my 3 books on geoengineering. My site is at elanafreeland.com. And I post every day on the one site that Facebook still allows me on, which is called EMF Planetary Engineering. And I also post at gab.com the group called Geoengineered Transhumanism with Elana Freeland. And those postings are very valuable in that I also give commentary there. I know I should be doing it at my blog site, but somehow I'm caught here because I have about 1,000 people who look at it every day. So I need to produce for them to keep them learning about how this works, how it all works with everything else.
Thanks so much, Elana. I would love to have you back on sometime in the future. We didn't really get to dive into Rudolf Steiner or Carl Jung's work because I've been really getting into his work. I'd love to have you back on to talk about the UFO narrative because that's really heating up right now. And Rudolf Steiner and Carl Jung. I highly recommend people check the links in the description to check out Elana's work. For everyone else, thanks for watching and listening. Much love to everyone in the chat. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel in the YouTube algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. The links to all of my information is also in the description. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep love in your heart for everyone. Stay safe out there. And if you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. See you guys next time.